Thank you very much for joining us for the midday news on Camnet TV. My name is Marco Kwa. This afternoon, a lawmaker complains over untimely distribution of CDF as residents demand construction of a mortuary. Motorists demand accountability on the utilization of toll fees. In international news, a climate crisis threatens the right to food, observes the United Nations. And in sports news, Moses Sichone names a final COSAFA squad. For details of these and other stories, join us shortly after this break.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kids show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamangaza, to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back, and now the news in detail. The National Water and Supply Sanitation Council, NWASCO, says the introduction of a specific electricity tariff on water is a step in the right direction, but that it mostly benefits small entities. Analyzing the prospects of the new water tariff, NWASCO Chief Inspector Peter Mutale points out that big utilities like the Lusaka Water and Sanitation Company will not see the benefits. He, however, says it is positive that now there is a specific tariff and that discussions will continue to find ways of cushioning water utilities who provide services for a public good. Here's a report.
Almost amanda yengi kunotapali abakweta menshi. Nififide so tulipaka tanki hapa amenshi tuleta pa 1 kwacha.
With rapid urbanization throughout the developing world, water and sanitation utilities are facing increasing pressures to provide reliable safe-drinking water and sanitation management services. However, these are highly energy-intensive activities. The International Energy Agency has estimated that electricity consumption of the water sector worldwide was 4% of the total global electricity consumption as of 2016. And in Zambia, energy is among major costs for utilities. During our visit to the Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company water installations in the year 2022 in Kafue district, we were made aware that energy is among the major costs draining the coffers.
Very high voltage power that we have to, because one pump to run it takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of power, and therefore our ZESCO bill is extremely high because of this situation.
To partly address the problem, recently the Energy Regulation Board (ERB) announced the introduction of a specific tariff for the water sector.
Special attention has been paid to the low-income households, small commercial operations, social services, and water utilities. And
National Water Supply and Sanitation Council, NWASCO Chief Inspector Peter Mutale says the introduction of a specific water tariff is a step in the right direction, but that it mostly benefits small utilities.
We and ZESCO have responded to our request, which is a very good and a positive thing for us, because we have our own tariff as a sector which you can easily negotiate. When you are bundled in other categories like maximum demand, social and commercial, it was very difficult to negotiate a tariff because we are negotiating for everyone. So now, this time we can negotiate on their own. Now, with the tariff that has come, it's a rising block tariff. It has got about 4 bands. Band 1, band 2, band 3, up to band 4. So the higher you consume, the more you pay.
Analyzing the prospects of the new water tariffs, Mr. Mutale says engagements will continue to find ways on how utilities can be cushioned.
In trying to propose, all the commercial utilities sat and made a proposal that the 3rd and the 4th band be reduced so that all the CEOs could benefit, the bigger and the small ones. but it's something that ELB did not consider, so they have gone ahead with the same proposal. But just to mention to you, the benefit is there for the smaller ones, but the bigger ones, we have seen an increase like the first year up to about 25%, which, as I say, better than the 2021, which went to about 143%. So I think for us that's the issue, but we continue engaging ZESCO and ELB because we know the nature of the business that commercial utilities are involved in.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
Residents of Lusaka's Chawama compound are appealing to government to construct a mortuary at Chawama Level 1 Hospital. Alice Mpeta tells Camnet News that residents have been forced to pay over 400 kwacha in order to transfer the remains of their loved ones to the University Teaching Hospital. The residents explain that it has been almost over 2 years that the hospital has been without a mortuary. Meanwhile, Chawama area Member of Parliament Tasila Lungu says she is not in charge of releasing funds as she made a recommendation a long time ago. Here's a report.
Mortuaries are a vital part of every society. However, residents of Chawama and Lusaka have spent over 2 years without the existence of a mortuary at Chawama Level 1 Hospital. The residents tell this journalist that they are wondering what the authorities think of their livelihood. They explain that it is becoming unbearable to transport their deceased loved ones from the Level 1 hospital to the University Teaching Hospital, UTH. Juma Piri explains that transferring the remains of their loved ones is now fetching between 400 kwacha and more, which they explain is challenging.
Kuna kwa tu problem yantili nayo, Level 1 yatu iribe mochari. So, romuntu amuadi idati mapezeka na problem yopereka ku UTH. So tipempa ba area Member of Parliament maybe wangatitandize pa ndrama za veneza ntiona wango ikirako being CDF kututiambirie tupange nani mochari naona ingatitandize jandrama because tikangana ma consequences mwina ngomu ijandrama yatandiza abantu bambire maningi but kuno kwatu kuyambira by the way they go sitaonepo bane bichitika parija CDF man tini muzuba tilipira ma 400 ngati ni usiku inkala more than that
mochari ni kulibe abantu tukafa fwe bantu momo batuza go to chani ku UTH ndiye problem chabe ilipo fwe chikuru chabe ni chamene tupempa hospital ili chabe bwino manje tufuna mochari kwakamba tindrama zapeza tindrama ulibe yokamba tiendani tengani bubode muipeleke ku UTH.
Very disappointed that the mortuary here in Chawama, but personal Level 1 we accept, thank you, but disappointing, no mortuary. Up to this time, nothing. So we are expecting to take up wazati wangate open even a single one each day, or no problem.
Meanwhile, Area Member of Parliament Tasila Lungu says recommendations for the construction of the said mortuary were a long time made. The MP says releasing funds is not her duty and called on the residents to visit the constituency office for more information on the said matter.
Not the ones who actually implement. We sit on those committees, we make recommendations. That's the only job that you have as an MP, is to make recommendations on what needs to be done. So from my part, and also my councillors and whoever else is on that committee, we've made recommendations. But it hasn't happened yet. And I think what I would like to tell the residents of Chawama is that even for 2023, the money has not been released. So if the money hasn't been released, it's not the MP that releases money. What is the MP supposed to do? We push and we go to the council every other day. In fact, if any residents have any issues at all, or they have any questions at all on what they think needs to happen in the constituency or what they're not seeing, the office is available. All this information that I'm telling you now is in my office. You can follow up on any single project that you would want to follow up on.
Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Some public transport vehicle drivers are demanding to know where toll gate fees are being channeled, alleging that most roads are dilapidated. One of the drivers of Monde wonders to Camnet News why most roads are not maintained despite the mandatory payment of toll fees. Meanwhile, National Road Fund Agency NRFA Public Relations Manager Alphonsus Hamajira says the agency has a backlog of maintenance works whose payments are yet to be done.
Implemented to help recoup the cost of road construction and maintenance is the existence of toll gates at various points in the country. Sunday, 2nd July 2023, the National Road Fund Agency announced that it has so far collected 1.1 billion kwacha from toll fees from 38 toll gates during the period January to May 2023. While this is the case, some public service transport drivers whose service route is Southern Province have questioned the logic behind them paying toll fees when roads in most parts of the country are dilapidated. The drivers are calling on the National Road Fund Agency to utilize the money charged as toll gate fees to construct and maintain roads. They argue that it is baseless to continue being charged money for toll gates when roads still have potholes, which they explain that is now leading to road traffic accidents.
Nimadabwa timalipira ma toll gate every day monga se timapale ma public vehicles ma PSV drivers. Road we pay toll gate every day, and it is what ndrama zetu malipira pa toll gate nizopangisa malodi. So kumapezeka ati kuchoka che muli government inachoka ma toll gate pay anayamba load yeti naona eba napanga kuti tiona tezona ndrama zetu malipira izi zisebenza stizoona kana zisebenza ku malodi bwanji siku Southern Province kweka chapi mungayanga ni all angles of roads akalipo pangiwa kuli mapoti hozi. So chimanira bwisa tinanga government ndrama izi zisebenza zona ku malodi or zisebenza kuma other programs.
Mazabuka to Monde, the road is bad, but it's under construction.
Ndrama pama lipira ma 40 kwacha, ma 5 kwacha, kwati manani ma road, okay, road yetu kwati ipana peka kuchoka che Murusaka kwenda fika panani pa Mazabuka. Then kuchoka che pa Mazabuka pa hospital kwenda fika ku Monze road ilipoa. Manya kanga tupatu tukanizira bwanji. Waona ka? So na magise never mankarapo. Sapeza tu muntu ali yako chani potuo nevo chali ya potuo then bakumana. So tuzopema che kandrama kama tumalezinga kajapanani pa matogeti ipatukaniziramo bapangako atisi machani mapotu achitabwanji ya chepako.
Meanwhile, the National Road Fund Agency says it is aware of the outcry but states that the money collected is not enough to channel to road maintenance because there's also a backlog of unpaid funds to contractors who undertook maintenance works.
All the major road activities that you see being undertaken are being financed using road tolling. But then there's been a huge backlog of maintenance in this country, road maintenance. This puts us at a disadvantage because what we have in the common basket of funds in the road fund is not enough to cover every section of the road in this country in terms of maintenance. That's why this government now is leveraging on the public-private partnership. Yes, we know that there are cries out there from different motorists and members of the public on the roads being in a bad state. We understand, and we are saying even the corrections that we have are not enough to finance road maintenance across the broad spectrum of the road network, given the backlog of road maintenance that we have.
Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Citizens First CF party has observed with grave concern the escalating abuse of human rights of opposition political leaders under the order of those in power. CF President Harry Kalava is appalled at the insensitive statement issued by the Minister of Home Affairs, Jack Mwimbo, justifying the brutality, including physical and mental torture, being perpetuated by police and other security wings against opposition political party leaders and members. Mr. Kalaba wondered why the country should be seen as if it is under a military junta. He says, as a CF, they are not against people who looted the rule of law. He, however, states that law must be adhered to even as those perceived to have looted the country's resources are being followed. Mr. Kalaba wondered how the Inspector General of Police could be threatening the opposition leaders with such impunity for merely speaking for the Zambian people.
We have taken note of the statement that has been made by the Inspector General of Police concerning usage of minimum force on us members of the opposition. I think that is unacceptable and it should never be allowed in a country like ours. The police brutality on us citizens must be condemned by all well-meaning citizens because human rights are being infringed upon. That is why the statement by the Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Jack Mwimbu, is very unfortunate. He should never have said that. Honorable Mwimbu must be seen to protect the interests of both the ruling and the opposition because he's not a minister only for the UPND. He is a minister for all of us in this country. And therefore, it is incumbent upon him to make statements that will be all-encompassing. We will not be intimidated as members of the opposition, regardless of what they say. We are going to continue offering checks and balances that are going to put this government on its tentacles so they can do that which they should do. And we have got a job to do to ensure that this country moves in the manner it should move, as opposed to what we are seeing, where they want us to, all of us, to be seeing their presence. It will not happen, not from the CF. We will do that which is right.
The Opposition Patriotic Front, PF, has dismissed statements circulating on social media alleging that the party's Central Committee has expelled presidential hopeful Dr. Chitalu Chilufya. In an exclusive interview, PF Acting Media Director Edwin Lifwekelo has accused the United Party for National Development for planning such propaganda with an intention of sowing feelings of discord in the party. Meanwhile, according to the statement issued, Deputy Information and Publicity Chairperson Emmanuel Mwamba says since the 16th of October 2022, the party has not yet sat to readmit those who were dropped from the Central Committee, among them Dr. Chilufya. Dr. Chilufya was dropped from the Central Committee on grounds of non-participation in party activities, but he, however, appealed to be readmitted. Reverend Archbishop Albert Chama, co-chair African Council of Religious Leaders, Religious for Peace, has observed with concern that children's unguided exposure to social media is causing more harm than good. Archbishop Chama notes that despite progressive attributes of the digital space, it still exposes children to harmful content, hence corrupting their morals. He says social media is subjecting children to security risks such as extortion and human trafficking. He has since recommended that government puts in place laws to protect children online.
Kids go to Facebook, they meet people they don't know. Kids are always browsing things and they're reading things which are not of their age in terms of assimilating certain information or material. We are concerned. And I'm sure all of us as faith leaders, it's something that we're talking about in our churches. You know, if you talk about human trafficking or children abuse or molestation, it starts from what they're reading, and there's something that things are normal when they're not normal. But we are saying, yes, technology has come, but we are free to be responsible. And then we're also going to be working together with other stakeholders, especially the governments, that they put in place laws that protect the children, especially using the social media. What sort of information can they allow? Like in Zambia through ZICTA, they should have a control. What sort of information they let go through the system, and what can say no, it can't, or what can say yes, can be read by children. So all that has to be worked on But we believe that as faith leaders together, we can have a strong voice to tackle that problem.
The Copperbelt Energy Corporation, CEC, says it has projects to have, it plans to have 100 megawatts of to the national grid by the end of 2023. CEC board chairperson London Mwafulilwa tells Camnet News that currently the company is generating 34 megawatts from the Copperbelt University plant. Mr. Mwafulilwa says apart from the Copperbelt solar plant, the company also has 2 more projects east of Ganaton and Itimpi, which are expected to produce a total of 65 megawatts of power by the end of the year. He says the company targets of 100 megawatts of solar energy to be contributed to the national grid is indicative of CEC's resolve to combat effects of climate change.
We moved from a 1 megawatt grid-connected plant to do another 33 megawatts. So now the total is 34 megawatts from that plant. So it's no longer a project. It's real, it's live, it's contributing to the energy generation or electricity generation in the country. The project that we have are 2 other projects. We call them Itimpi and east of Ganaton. Those are at implementation stage to produce a total of 65 megawatts of power by this year end. So total replica of what we've done in the Riverside project, but now we're doing it in Ganaton East and Itimpi. So by the year end, we should have 100 megawatts of solar power being contributed to the national grid.
Caritas Zambia has urged the United Party for National Development UPND administration to expedite the process of enacting the Public Order Act bill into law as per stakeholders' recommendations. In an interview with Camnet News, Caritas Zambia Democracy and Governance Officer Wilbrot Kangala has also called on all parliamentarians to support the progressive bill once tabled in Parliament. He says government needs to urgently address this issue and announce to the public when the bill will be tabled in Parliament as soon as possible. He has observed that the POA has remained a source of concern as over the years, successive governments have evidently used it to disadvantage political opponents, especially during elections.
Successive governments have been pointing to the fact that once given that chance of, governing this country, the first thing they are going to do once in office was to repeal and replace such a law. But we don't know the reason as to why every time when they come in, into office, they tend to forget and put the law aside and start using it against, the freedoms that we are supposed to be enjoying as enshrined in the Constitution, especially under Article 28, where the Bill of Rights or Part 3 of the Constitution. So this is a law that we don't need in this era because it infringes on your rights, our rights, and at the same time, if you are not careful, continue using the law to misuse and abuse people's rights, especially those who seem to be opposing, certain policies coming from the government. So for us, we are expecting the Public Order Act bill to be tabled in Parliament, debated, go through the process of law development, first, second, and third reading, and up until the President assents to read. So we are calling upon this government, more especially His Excellency the President, that it's high time that as a country we moved forward and repealed this law and replace it with a law that will promote constitutionalism, a law that will promote, good governance, and the law that will respect the freedoms and liberties that we are supposed to enjoy as citizens of this country. So we need to repeal this law. It's archaic, and you cannot even like it to have such a law. as a developing democracy.
On that note, we take a break. We'll be back shortly.
Akora kansheko alakula chancha mukero kula chekerera ucho mwana nani nanga naba butuka uwinge wo munanga tikasambe nani ingata mwishibe peke nitwipushe bana fia sasa ushe umwana nani na ingana naba butuka uwinge wo munanga tikasambe nani mwe ipisha ina ipisha abo mwikere nabo.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kid show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamangaza, to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Renglow, your smart irrigation partner.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. Camnet TV is on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 25 on GoTV, and find us on channel 106 on Topstar. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back, and now in international news, more than 828 million people are faced with hunger in 2021. And climate change is projected to place up to 80 million people more at risk of hunger by the middle of this century, creating a truly terrifying scale of desperation and need. The United Nations Human Rights Chief alerted on Monday, the 3rd of July, 2023. We monitored Africa News.
The impact of the climate crisis is threatening the right to food, the UN Human Rights Chief alerted on Monday. 828 million people faced hunger in 2021, and the crisis is projected to place up to 80 million more at risk by the middle of this century, Volker Turk said during the 53rd session of the Human Rights Council.
Our topic this morning is the right to food, and clearly this is comprehensively threatened by climate change. Extreme weather events and both sudden and gradual disasters caused by climate change wipe out crops, herds, fisheries and entire ecosystems. Their repetition makes it impossible for communities to rebuild and support themselves.
In 2015, world leaders committed, among other things, to strengthening the global response to the threat of the climate crisis. However, financial pledges by developed nations have not been kept. In the fight to mitigate the consequences of the crisis, small polluters, which are least developed nations, suffer an additional penalty.
Often these are countries that benefited little from industrial development and contributed next to nothing to the industrial processes which are killing our environment and violating rights. If this is not a human rights issue, what is?
Speaking in Geneva, Volker Turk called for an end to subsidies to the fossil fuel industry in order to deliver a livable future to the next generations.
South Africa could be nearing the end of daily power cuts, the country's electricity minister said on Sunday. With power cuts of up to almost 10 hours a day this year, businesses and households have been heavily impacted, with the economy already struggling under high interest rates and inflation. The load shedding, as the power cuts are known locally, is expected to reduce GDP by 2 percentage points this year. Minister Josiencio Ramahupa said that South Africa was beginning to keep up with demand and that the country could soon have no blackouts for 24 hours. He declined to give a specific date. In recent weeks, the blackouts have eased, but with the 2 coldest months of the Southern Hemisphere's winter left, there are fears that higher heating demand could outstrip supply.
Amid legal proceedings and years of debate, Uganda is drilling oil wells and hopes to begin producing oil by 2025. Both Chinese and French companies are invested in the scheme, involving an over 1,400 kilometers heated oil pipeline to the Tanzanian coast.
2 projects will produce the crude oil. That's the Kingfisher project and the Tilenga project. So those 2 projects will produce oil, and this produced oil will be commercialized through 2 other projects. The East African crude oil pipeline that will run from here, Hoima, to Tanzania to export crude oil, and then the Uganda refinery project that will be used to process our crude oil into petroleum products for use.
There are, however, some concerns. 52-year-old Juliet Akumu got a house adjacent to the development area, but says she is now worried about environmental pollution from the oil field. The major problem we have experienced so far was a couple of days ago when there was a huge dust that originated from the construction site, and all of us were covered in that dust. Some oil wells are to be drilled within Uganda's Murchison Falls National Park. The pipeline will then pass through 7 forest reserves and 2 game parks running alongside Lake Victoria.
I believe a lot of the issues being raised by the activists are out of either misinformation or deliberate disinformation. Because as government and the project partners, we have taken deliberate steps to ensure that the oil and gas projects are developed sustainably. We've taken care of the environment and biodiversity concerns.
Uganda is estimated to have recoverable oil reserves of at least 1.4 billion barrels. Drilling began in January this year, and the project is expected to be completed within 2 years.
In sports news, Chiporopolo assistant coach Moses Sichone has named a 23-man squad which has since left for Durban, South Africa, ahead of the 2023 COSAFA Championship that kicks off in South Africa. Sichone, who will lead the defending champions at the tournament, has named an array of top league performers and some rookies in the squad. Fresh from impressing in the AFCON qualifiers against Ivory Coast, goalie Lawrence Mlenga has also made the squad and will have to fight for the spot against Nchanga Rangers Victor Chabu and Trident's Francis Mwansa. That's it. That's all we had. But before we go, we take a look at the stories that made the headlines. Chawama lawmaker complains over untimely distribution of CDF as residents demand for the construction of a mortuary. Motorists demand accountability on the utilization of toll fees. In international news, climate crisis threatens the right to food, observes the United Nations. In sports news, Moses Sichone names final COSAFA squad. Before we go, we now look at today's Camnet verse of the day, and it comes from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 9 to 10, and it reads, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve." That's it. That's all we had for the news at 12. Don't forget to join us for another bulletin at exactly 19:30 this evening. But don't go away, because up next is the Lunchtime Cafe.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. Camnet TV is on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 25 on GoTV, and find us on channel 106 on Topstar. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Hey, join me, Amazing Katamanda, on the weekly gospel show for those exciting and interesting interviews with your favorite gospel music.
Hold on to me when it's too dark to see. You cannot do Hallelujah.
And this time around, we are bringing to you entertainment news and the countdown, as you guys are able to nominate your top 3 favorite music videos of the week. Remember, it's every Saturday at 10:45. You can also catch repeats every Monday at 10 hours. Camnet TV is not just another time.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Rain Glow, your smart irrigation partner.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kids show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamanga, get to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
News, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Television, not just another channel.
Mulai kusiaini. Kusiaini abo muikere nabo.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. Camnet TV is on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 25 on GoTV, and find us on channel 106 on Topstar. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Your smart irrigation partner.
Well, a lovely good afternoon, our dear viewers, for the Lunchtime Cafe. Today, I'm Patrick Soko, and we continue to inform you as well as educate you on various issues that are happening in the world of current affairs. Now, interesting, we are starting with our segment, which we call the Emerging Stories. And these are stories that are making the headlines and stories that are happening as we talk about now. Now, talking about emerging stories, interesting enough, we had a story this morning where former President Edgar Lungu's children have lamented unfair treatment from the state. Addressing the media in Lusaka Tuesday, Chawama Member of Parliament Tasila Lungu says the state has not made it any easier for them to operate, as it has been playing to the gallery in matters that relate to her family. And Ms. Lungu says that the family only gets to hear about certain lawsuits in the media, and that they have proceeded to obtain all the necessary documentation from the state and will proceed to defend themselves in court. So we start with this story where children belonging to the former President Edgar Lungu had a press conference this morning.
We expect to be the first ones to know as it relates to the matters involving any members of our family. However, we have learned of the recent lawsuits through news items published in tabloids and various social media platforms. We proceeded to engage our lawyers and to obtain necessary documents from the state, which attempts have met with difficulties. We have finally obtained the necessary documents and will proceed to respond appropriately. Our appeal to all of you is to allow us to defend ourselves in court. The dramatization of our circumstances by the state in the daily tabloids has only worked to demonize our father, who has diligently worked to serve this country and willingly handed over power to the incumbent. We have spent considerable time with our father and our mother, who in all these difficult times have opted to remain silent. Sorry. Our father's resolve is to allow the law to take its course, and we agree with his position. Whereas some of you may call our father different names, he remains a caring father to us and a loving husband to our mother. We wish to thank you all who have reached out to us and sympathized with us. Your encouragement has kept us going.
Well, there you have it. That's the story there we were talking about among the emerging stories. I was explaining earlier that children belonging to the former president, Edgar Lungu, at a press conference where they were expressing a number of concerns pertaining to what they term as a political persecution. However, those in government would argue that it is the enforcement of the rule of law. So that's one of the stories that we are looking at now. This story is also emanating from the arrest of former President Edgar Lungu's son, Daliso Lungu, for various charges, among them money laundering activities. And he was arrested alongside his wife. And that's a story that we had as of last week, and we continue to see various leaders who served under the Patriotic Front being victim to the issue, the ongoing arrest rather. And let's also look at another interesting story in the emerging stories, where Republican President Hakainde Hichilema has left for Banguela province in Angola to attend the official handover ceremony of the Lobito corridor operations. The Lobito corridor operations will be serving as a pathway for the free movement of goods and services between Angola and Zambia, including the Democratic Republic of Congo. On his Facebook page, President Hichilema commended the President João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço for the invitation. He has also thanked the Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi for agreeing to work with Zambia in unlocking trade facilities such as the Lobito corridor operations. Lobito, rather. Now, that's a story where the head of state has traveled to Angola for this important event. And in case you want to join us later on the program, you can do so during the viewers' reaction to give us your perspective on the stories that we are looking at this afternoon. Now, also among the stories that are likely to make the headlines today is the story where the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflections, JCTR, has proposed that the non-taxable threshold under the pay-as-you-earn structure in the 2024 national budget must be pushed to 6,000 kwacha in order to provide relief to workers. In the 2023 national budget, the government increased the pay-as-you-earn exempt threshold from 4,500 kwacha to 4,800 kwacha and raised the top taxable band to 8,900 kwacha from 6,900 kwacha to provide relief. And so the JCTR Executive Director, Father Alex Muyebe, says the national average of the cost of living is over 7,000 kwacha for a family of 5. Hence, it is only logic to make sure that reasonable changes are made on the pay-as-you-earn structure to boost the workers' incomes. So let's get to listen to Father Alex Muyebe.
Especially you're looking at the population, majority of which are poor people, but also even when you look at the employment sector, very few people are in employment in terms of those who are in the formal sector. Of course, the majority of the employees we know are in the informal sector. But when it comes to issues of generating income, this is a critical area, especially when it comes to taxation system. And over some time now, a number of CSOs have been advocating for the government also to raise the minimum tax band, especially to commensurate with the cost of living. We would propose, therefore, that 5,000, even 6,000 as the minimum threshold for payee would be something that would provide some relief. We know the government is struggling also to also increase their revenue base, but at the same time, this is the government which is also looking at the needs of the majority of the population who need to be cushioned. There are various measures that are being put in place, including the social protection programs or social cash transfer, but the measure that can cater a number of people and provide a relief, I think, is when it comes to the minimum tax threshold. If that can be increased to something in the region of 6,000 kwacha, that will make a good relief for the people of Zambia.
Welcome back. You are watching the Lunchtime Cafe with me, Patrick Soko, and we were looking at one of the emerging stories coming from the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflections, JCTR, where they are giving their perspective pertaining to the pay-as-you-earn structure, and they are making recommendations to the 2024 national budget. As you may be aware, the Ministry of Finance and National Planning, led by Stumbeko Musokotwane, is currently getting various submissions from stakeholders pertaining to the 2024 national budget on what various stakeholders want to be contained in the national budget and what changes or what should be added to the national budget. As you know, the budgeting and planning process is important to national development, and hence citizens are usually encouraged to participate in the budgeting process. Now, another story in line with the issues pertaining to the national budget formulation, we look at a story coming from the Center Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, who have demanded that the government enhances funding to the social sectors in the 2024 national budget. Last month, Zambia successfully agreed new repayment terms with its state creditors on up to $6.3 billion debt, including over $4 billion owed to China. And the CSPR program officer, Eddie Musosa, says now that Zambia managed to get some relief, it is important that marginalized citizens are cushioned through investment in the social sectors. So let's get to listen to this story.
Now that this restructuring is in place, we commend government for that achievement, but we also look forward this to benefit social sectors such as education, health, social protection, as well as water, sanitation and hygiene. We know that, for example, allocations towards WASH have remained historically low, but we anticipate that as the government presents the budget for the year or begins to draft the budget for the financial year 2024, we'll see significant increments when it comes to allocations to social sectors in order for us to address poverty and vulnerability. As this has been the case that we have made to our creditors, that debt servicing was crowding out social sector expenditure, and had we continued on that trajectory, the living conditions for citizens would have worsened. For us as CSPR, what we therefore look forward in the upcoming 2024 budget is more resources allocated to these social sectors, but also the targeted beneficiaries or citizen population to increase. If it's social protection, we should be able to, over the next 3 years, when we're undergoing this debt restructuring, to at least attain 100% of all extremely poor households being on social assistance support. We need to see more recruitment of public service workers, especially in critical social sectors like education and health, because if we look at the user service provider ratio, it is still very high, even though we've made minor strides. Thirdly, and most importantly, we anticipate that the government will be more consultative, because now we are looking at how are we going to share the resources that have been accrued as a result of us restructuring our debt. Therefore, we want to see government engaging more meaningfully with citizens, as well as explaining policy direction as we move on this much more hopeful trajectory.
Well, there you have it. That was Mr. Eddie Musosa. He is the program officer at the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, also giving his perspective pertaining to the formulation of the 2024 national budget, and he is recommending that the Zambian government should consider investing in the social sectors, given that there has been some relief on the issue following the accusation of a debt relief by this country. He feels that now there is room for Zambia to also enhance investment towards the social sectors. So later on the program, you'll be able to give us your views and perspective, and we can get interacting to just also get what you think about some of the stories that we are looking at in the emerging stories segment there. Quite an interesting segment. And now we are just going to take a short break, but when we'll be back, we'll start looking at forgotten stories. So keep it on Camnet TV, the Lunchtime Cafe.
Water is life. Each drop counts, and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kid show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamangaza, get to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Well, thank you for staying with us on the Lunchtime Cafe. I'm Patrick Soko, and earlier we were looking at emerging stories, but now we're back with another interesting segment, which is the Forgotten Stories segment. In this basket, we are looking at stories that were making the headlines on this day, and that is in the year 2020, and we'll also come to the year 2021. So we start with a story that is coming from the year 2020, where then President Edgar Lungu officially handed over a newly constructed housing unit for the correctional facilities and the Zambia police in Monze and Mazabuka districts of Southern Province. So we are starting with this story, which took place, which happened on this very day, back in the day in 2020. So let's get to look at this story.
President Edgar Lungu has had a busy two-day working visit in the Southern Province. On Saturday, the head of state was in Monze district and Mazabuka for a series of programs, among them to hand over housing units to the Zambia Correctional Services officers and the Zambia police officers under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Here, President Lungu reaffirmed his government's continued desire to improving the living standards of security officers in Zambia.
The 70 housing units we are commissioning here in Monze today, Southern Province, are part of the countrywide 12,000 housing units that we must construct to address the shortage of decent housing for security officers under the Ministry of Home Affairs.
There you have it. That's a story where the former president then he was the president, Edgar Lungu, was officially handing over housing units to the correctional facilities and the Zambia police in Monze and Mazabuka districts of Southern Province. Now, this story could not further proceed because we had some technical challenge. However, the story is clear. That was a time prior to the, with some few months towards the elections, and we were looking at among the projects that the then government had embarked on was making sure that the men and women in uniform had houses, so accommodation. So that was an important task there, and it continues because housing development is something that we've been looking at as a country, and this administration is also continuing on that same trajectory. So it reminds us of some of the issues we might have forgotten about, and some of the things that still need us to follow, and some of the things that we need to get concerned over as members of the general public. Now, let's get to also look at another story. Now, we go to 2021. Now, in the year 2021, we had around around this time, the COVID-19 had ravaged the world, and most countries had resorted to vaccines, Zambia inclusive. There was, however, a lot of mixed feelings as regards the vaccine in Zambia. So let's look at that story. I think this story is still fresh. You can recall and you can relate when it comes to the issue pertaining to vaccination. We had quite a number of theories pertaining to this subject. So let's get to listen to this.
The coming of the coronavirus vaccine in Zambia has been surrounded by various myths and misconceptions. While some have been getting vaccinated, others have opted to stay away. Those refusing to get vaccinated have cited various fears, such as negative effects to their health. The country is expected to get its second batch of AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccines on 5th July 2021. Speaking to Camnet News, members of the community, however, have expressed different opinions. Some have called for more sensitization on the vaccines, while others have expressed complete unwillingness to get vaccinated.
Na vaccination yamene ya coronavirus siningaenda utenga or siningatengeza chifukwa chakuti siniziva ntchito ya injection amene isebenzera. Nene nzofuna at least ba health babwera monga muno market mutendere market babwera batukunzisako.
Vaccine ingatenge ngati na full information, but the problem is that information need be maningi.
Ine vaccine yamene balasa ma government yamene balasa ne kwati palwanga singalasi because tamene naona paye manambiro after balasa ma vaccine yamene balasa nje pamene matenda achitamunga yapakirako maningi.
Hii vaccine stifuna no ifuna na kuimvera stifuna kuimvera.
Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary in charge of Technical Services Kennedy Malama, however, has re-emphasized that the vaccine is optional.
When you talk of myths, you know most of the myths are actually lies, and people hide in good terminologies, myths and misconceptions. Looking at the people we are losing from COVID, it is true that maybe 99.999% were never vaccinated. So we are saying that people who are vaccinated, those who may get COVID, are not getting very severe disease or dying from it.
Zambia, along with the rest of the world, is battling the coronavirus pandemic. Zipporah Mushala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Well, there you have it. That's one of the forgotten stories there, which took place on this day in 2021. on the actual day being today. And we continue to remind you of what used to happen there. And that story was pertaining to vaccination. Now, we go straight to another story. In 2021, residents of Mutendere compound in Lusaka had bitterly complained over the high cost of garbage collection. So let's get to listen to this.
Behind me is Mahatma Gandhi School in Lusaka's Mtendere compound. The vast land you're seeing behind me belongs to the school, but unfortunately it has been turned into a dump site by the residents of this area. Some residents spoken to have raised concerns over the high price they are charged for garbage collections, which has been forcing them to dump their garbage along this place. I spoke to some of the traders near this place, and this is what they had to say.
Challenge today kwata kumulandu wakweba ti yakulipira mabini ikulu 70 bini pedo mukasango kweba tipanganda twabapo 8 but wonse 70 nomba yempi adatule ikwanisha ngachakweba tiwabika ko 70 pe house kuti twakwanisha elo futi amabini ayayene abaleta amabini bengi bambi bafuma kusi bembi market so balaleta amabini apapene mukuchitashani nomba futi natukwata challenge because panopene ebo tule chitishicha balunshi n'abatushupa
nyumba mayinzi tingani yabai mayinzi pa nyumba yari full manyumba tie dum cheshani mayinzi angongena bava kuja mayinzi tidanda pa mabini tifuna ko help pa mabini pa machani iya ibana sati abunje pa ground mabola pama kama tournament mashani mabini yani ayarengeza iya pemba ko help shoko clean ko mabini.
Much disappointed with these politicians despite it being campaign period. None of them are coming up with the strategies of removing these garbages. As you can see, kids play around from here and then away from the garbages. This also can be used as an opportunity of creating employment to the residents of Munai constituency. But none of them of these aspiring candidates are talking about this issue.
The land you're seeing is also used as a playing ground for kids in this area. They, however, risk contracting diseases due to the garbage that are being dumped along this place. Some of the kids we spoke to had this to say. At the plea of many of these children, every aspiring leader should tell these candidates what their plans are in providing a clean environment for their residents. For cleanliness is next to godliness. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Interesting story there coming done by Prudence Chota, and that was in the year 2021. Also on this day, the 4th of July, that was last year. Interesting story. That was a build up towards the general election, which was falling in August, and during that time it was tense, quite a number of political activities at that time. And those are some of the stories we looked at pertaining to the Forgotten Stories segment. And earlier before that, I was also sharing with you on the emerging stories. Now in the studio, I've been joined by my colleague, Nelson Zulu, who's going to help us discuss these some of the stories that are emerging and also just get his perspective pertaining to the Forgotten Stories. Nelson, good afternoon.
Afternoon, thank you. How are you?
Interesting. No, me, I've been fine.
No, it's to ask how you're doing. You never know. Somebody might just be kicked by an illness, and before you know it, they're not feeling okay.
Like yourselves have been kicked by COVID.
Not really, Patrick, not really.
Okay, now, so let's get to look at the emerging stories. I had an interesting story pertaining to the Forgotten Stories segment, and you happen to be among people who were providing coverage to that story where former President Edgar Lungu's children have lamented unfair treatment from the state. I hope you did manage to get the details of that story. Just share with us a little bit more.
Yeah, well, we did manage to get details of that story, and when you look at this story, particulars that are relating or build-ups to this story are that the first family is alleging that they're being persecuted because they're not made aware in terms of when an arrest is supposed to be made or when someone from the first family is supposed to appear before the courts. So
you mean the former first family?
Exactly, the former first family, rather. Yes. And then there's an allegation to say we only get this first-hand information when it's actually being aired by various platforms of the media, and it gets them wondering why exactly it's happening in that manner, and they feel to some extent they're being targeted. Yes, I think this is emerging from the recent story we had, I think last week, where the former Republican president's son, Darius Olungu, was called for questioning in relation to some vehicles and the company. Yes, but this is the detail of what is actually pertaining to that story, and you know the question or these allegations have been ongoing. Even those in the opposition have been raising eyebrows to say, well, we're being persecuted, but really, is it persecution?
Yeah.
So those are questions that are still burning out there, and people, I'm sure that.
But yourself, yeah, you've also been working on stories pertaining to persecution. First of all, but why do you think? But others are saying it is the rule of law.
Well, it could be the rule of law, but the way it's being applied, it has to balance. You know, we are in a democratic dispensation, Patrick. So if I treat you unfairly and I treat the other person next to you fairly, it means we're not going in the same direction. Because you cannot say the current people that are in the wheels of authority, they're not found on the wrong side of the law. So it means that those allegations are always going to be there. Moreover, as Africans, we say there's no smoke without fire. So it should start from there. I think that's a perspective I would generate myself, looking at it, that I've had interactions with various people, I've had interactions with various stakeholders, and a lot of people are questioning what really is happening.
Interesting. There you have it, and we also had another interesting story, Nelson, pertaining to where President Hakainde Hichilema has left for Benguela province in Angola to attend the official handover ceremony of the Lobito corridor operations. The Lobito corridor operations will be serving as a pathway for the free movements of goods and services between Angola, Zambia, including the Democratic Republic of Congo. So now, interesting development there again.
Well, I think in as much as this could also be a build-up to the pathway of various goods and services that are going to be going through that process, it is also high time maybe that I think it is also an opportunity. Let me put it that way. I think it's also an opportunity for the government and our chief marketer, number one marketer, to also look into issues relating to oil, because for some time we have had issues relating to energy and everything. The continued adjustment of fuel pump prices, where at times the reviews go hard on those that are in the wheels of businesses. So probably it's also an opportunity that the president should also look at all these angles in as far as he's going for that transition. I think that would be my honest take on the matter.
Interesting. Now, talking still on emerging stories, Nelson, we cannot talk about, we cannot leave without talking about these other issues pertaining to the budget formulation. We understand that the budget formulation is an important process, and citizens' participation is important. Now, we look at the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflections, JCTR, have proposed that the non-taxable threshold under the pay-as-you-earn structure in the year 2024 to be pushed at 6,000 kwacha in order to provide relief to workers. Now, before we get look at that story, we have a call, and let's pick this call. Hello, good afternoon. You are through to the Lunchtime Cafe. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You are through to the Lunchtime Cafe.
I think we lost that call. Now, I was explaining to you that for example, in the trend, I think hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We're able to get you live and direct. Who are we talking to?
Okay, so we are still on the viewers' reactions. In case you wanted to give us a comment on the stories that we were looking at under the Emerging Stories segment, as well as the Forgotten Stories segment, you can also give us that call and we'll be able to interact right in the studio. You can also leave us that message on our social media platforms. We are streaming this broadcast live on Facebook as well as YouTube. You can get to give us your perspective. So let's pick this call. Hello, you are through to the Lunchtime Cafe. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, and how are you, sir?
We are very fine.
Your name and where you are calling us from?
Jones Mukuma from Livingston.
Mr. Mukuma, you can go ahead with your contribution. We have new developments.
Yeah, my contribution is we have seen the press conference done by the Filamungu and brothers and sisters.
Yes.
My brother, is unfortunate that the present government is taking that trajectory of fighting the first family. This trajectory, it is supposed to be destroyed. Look at what Manamata did to Chiluba, and look at what Chiluba did to Kenskaunda. It's not right. All these fightings are based on the malice and the hate. Because this one did this to me also, because they have got power, I must do this to again. It's not right. That's the malice at that level. You know, these people who are doing this, they don't know what people in the compounds are talking. The people in the compound have now started fighting with the former festive family. That's what it is. And it's slowly. The voters of these 2.8 is going down. And above all, Mr. Soko, let me tell you, we are under the eye of nature. Even when I hide, to say, no, I'm hiding in the name of law. But in my heart, I know I'm doing it out of merit, injustice, malice, and hate. You may not know. You may not know my heart. But nature knows my heart. Nature is to judge me. So let them stop all these things, please. Let them look at the development. People are suffering. You have been talking about these things every day, year in, year out. People are suffering. They don't listen, but they are fighting innocent people. Anyway, the first family must continue and let them go to court. Let them defend themselves. God is on their side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mukuma, there for your perspective. You too, you can give us your views this afternoon on the Lunchtime Cafe. Remember that we are looking at the emerging stories as well as the forgotten stories. So you can pick whichever basket you want to choose. And quite a number of stories that we have looked at there in these two segments. Interesting enough, we are also streaming this live program live on our social media platforms on Facebook as well as YouTube. You can leave us that message. In case you do not have airtime, you'd want to communicate via WhatsApp, it is possible to get through to Camnet TV via the number that is on your screen through the WhatsApp icon there. You'll be able to get in touch with us and we'll get interacting. Interesting stories that we are looking at this afternoon. Now, there's also another story where we were looking at the Justiciary. We are calling on the government to revise the pay-as-you-earn exempt threshold. So another interesting story there. And also the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, we are also sharing with us their perspectives. And we continue looking at these interesting stories. Nelson, do you have a take on these stories?
I think I would go for Mr. Eddie Musosa's as a perspective in terms of ensuring that, well, when we look at the budget formulation, we also put priority to the education sector and these other social services, because, you know, everything is now evolving around education. So an educated country probably means that there's also an aspect of development coming through. Yes.
Now, we refresh your memories on the emerging stories by playing the story there where the former first family was lamenting over what they term as persecution, and that they feel they're not being fairly treated, and that they should not be judged through the media, but rather through the courts of law. Let's get to listen to this story.
We expect to be the first ones to know as it relates to the matters involving any members of our family. However, we have learned of the recent lawsuits through news items published in tabloids and various social media platforms. We proceeded to engage our lawyers and to obtain necessary documents from the state, which attempts have met with difficulties. We have finally obtained the necessary documents and will proceed to respond appropriately. Our appeal to all of you is to allow us to defend ourselves in court. The dramatization of our circumstances by the state in the daily tabloids has only worked to demonize our father, who has diligently worked to serve this country and willingly handed over power to the incumbent. We have spent considerable time with our father and our mother, who in all these difficult times have opted to remain silent. Sorry. Our father's resolve is to allow the law to take its course, and we agree with his position. Whereas some of you may call our father different names, he remains a caring father to us and a loving husband to our mother. We wish to thank you all who have reached out to us and sympathized with us. Your encouragement has kept us going.
Well, how dear viewers, you are watching Camnet television, and not just another channel. We are on DSTV channel 274 as well as GoTV on channel 25, and on Topstar we are on channel 106, and you will be able to catch us right now, especially now that we have the lunchtime cafe. We bring you nothing but information and entertainment as well as education. We make sure that you are updated and that everything that is accurate is given unto you, and that is one of the stories we are looking at in the emerging stories, where the former first family and the children are expressing concern pertaining to what they term as ill treatment by the current administration. They feel that it is not logical that they should be discovering of various issues pertaining to their welfare through the media. They feel that they should be judged through the courts of law as opposed to being ridiculed in the media, especially now that we have this advent of social media. you can just check for yourselves what is happening pertaining to that's even the same briefing that has already taken place. You'd see how people sometimes tend to dramatize issues, but this is where we have reached in terms of this modern society,
Exactly.
where technology and others just sit behind the computers, punching those, editing those clips, working on those texts. So, but here on the Camnet Lunchtime Cafe, we give you everything that is authentic and nothing that is false. Now, Nelson, there's also been a concern that, for example, the pay as you earn has been among the major contributors to the national budget. And in the first quarter of 2023, it was actually reviewed that Zambia was actually, Zambians and citizens or workers in general were actually contributing more, even more than some of the companies. And for the previous quarter, they even did better than the mining sector in terms of taxes. So you can tell that Zambians are major citizens are ordinarily government is raising more money through that, but there's been concern that we should revise that. What do you have to say about that?
I think revising should, could be the right call, but it has to be considerate. It has to cater for all that are part and parcel of this, because in the same bracket of pay as you earn, or pay as you earn, payee, as they put it, you'd find that the people that meet this obligation, it's something that they cannot run away from. It's mandatory. They paid, but you find that maybe their businesses would be struggling or they're still having difficulties. So it won't make any sense if we still have that threshold maintained, while we still have people that are contributing and they're facing difficulties.
Yeah, interesting. This is an interesting subject always in the budget and in the 2024 national budget in October. Or between September and October, as the Finance Minister, Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane, will be presenting the budget. We'll be getting the updates, or if at all they are listening to what the people are recommending. It is an important issue, especially for the labor movement. They are concerned that, for example, disposable income for the workers is also affected in that sometimes they have to pay many statutory obligations. For instance, when you get paid, you have to look at ZRA through the pay as you earn. You also have to look at the National Pension Scheme Authority, NAPSA contribution. They have to deduct that, and you sometimes you have to look at the National Health Insurance Scheme, NIMA, and you have to look at the workers' compensation, though that is at the company level. But you would see that all those things, Nelson, overall, they tend to shrinken your income.
Your overall financial base that you might be expecting to have this much at the month end, but before you know it, there are already deductions that have been made, and at the end of the day, your family is languishing. You're unable to meet those obligations that are supposed to meet at family level. So now, how do you begin to stand up and remain firm and provide for your family?
Interesting.
So there are all those issues that really should be looked at, and when looking at all these factors, they should also be looking at these persons that are making contributions, because it trickles down to them and their livelihood. Yes, we know their services are very beneficial to the nation. Yes, we know the contributions are very beneficial as well in form of tax to the government, in terms of development and ensuring that we've got funds at various government institutions. But what is left of them at the end of the day?
Yeah, you're right. Now, let's also look at the forgotten stories, Nelson. I want you to pick your perspective also on these other interesting stories. We looked at, there was vaccine hesitancy in the year 2021. I remember that a number of theories emerged pertaining to vaccinations.
Yes, a number of theories emerged, and those theories still exist, because in as far as we can say we are at 70% in terms of vaccination, we still have got a lot of Zambians that are not vaccinated, and they're saying, I'm not going to subscribe to this.
Those that are skeptical.
They're still skeptical up until now. I wouldn't even want to delve into some people that I know, but facts or information for sure on the ground states that we still have a lot of Zambians that are skeptical about the entire vaccination thing. They would rather do their self-protection or prevention measures of masking up following the social distancing and everything. But overall, these things, they don't seem to be working. They don't work.
Interesting. We are getting your views in case you want to join the conversation this afternoon on the Lunchtime Cafe with me, Patrick Soko, and Nelson Zulu. We were looking at some of the emerging stories as well as some forgotten stories. And prior to that, we did have the main news. And in case you missed some stories, you can go back to this live broadcast and be able to get informed regarding what we did cover in the area of news, and also get to familiarize yourself with some of the emerging stories. These are but among the many stories that we are likely to work on and that are likely to make it in the 1930 main news here on Camnet TV. And interesting stories are coming. There also have a story where the residents of Lusaka's Mississippi compound are complaining over the high cost of mini meal. And they say that it is important that the government considers reducing the price of mini meal to below 100 kwacha. Whether that is attainable is something we can still continue to look forward to if at all it is possible. But looking at various economic fundamentals and the inflation aspect, I don't think that will be attainable. It's not an easy undertaking at all. But however, maize and mini meal being a staple food, Zambians do have the right to continuously praise for its affordability. At the end of the day, it is akawali, you know.
But Mr. Soko, I think for me, it could be attainable depending on the strategies that could be put on the table.
Such as?
For example, we've got the Zambia National Service. We need to capacitate these people. We can have a Zambia National Service milling in all the provincial headquarters to ensure that food, or maybe let me say milli meal, is produced and provided to the residents or the citizens at a cheaper cost. So meaning that each and every provincial office or place will have the ZNDS meeting, meaning that they're going to supply to that locality, and issues of meal prices going up and people unable to have 3 meals a day would be things of the past. ZNS has got all the capacity, but it has to be supported further. I think that would be my honest take on the issue relating to meal meal.
There you are. It is attainable, and that is according to Nelson. It is possible. Anything is possible with commitment. I also do agree with you. Everything is possible, but we are looking at development, and developing Zambia is not the sole responsibility of the Zambian government. We are part of the government, and collectively we have to contribute towards national development. We have to complement the government where we can. The private sector has to be working. The government has to be working. Everyone else at individual level has to be working for us to eventually attain maximum development. So those are the stories that we are looking at, and we're just going to refresh your memories on other stories under the Emerging Stories segment. This is a story coming from the CSPR, and we also look at the story coming from the JCTR. They are looking at the 2024 national budget, and they are making various recommendations under the Emerging Stories segment.
Now that this restructuring is in place, we commend government for that achievement, but we also look forward to benefit social sectors such as education, health, social protection, as well as water, sanitation and hygiene. We know that, for example, allocations towards WASH have remained historically low, but we anticipate that as the government presents the budget for the year or begins to draft the budget for the financial year 2024, we'll see significant increments when it comes to allocations to social sectors in order for us to address poverty and vulnerability. As this has been the case that we have made to our creditors, that debt servicing was crowding out social sector expenditure, and had we continued on that trajectory, the living conditions for citizens would have worsened. For us as CSPR, what we therefore look forward in the upcoming 2024 budget is more resources allocated to these social sectors, but also the targeted beneficiaries or citizen population to increase. If it's social protection, we should be able to, over the next 3 years, when we're undergoing this debt restructuring, to at least attain 100% of all extremely poor households being on social assistance support. We need to see more recruitment of public service workers, especially in critical social sectors like education and health, because if we look at the user service provider ratio, it is still very high even though we've made minor strides. Thirdly, and most importantly, we anticipate that the government will be more consultative, because now we are looking at how are we going to share the resources that have been accrued as a result of us restructuring our debt. Therefore, we want to see government engaging more meaningfully with citizens, as well as explaining policy direction as we move on this much more hopeful trajectory.
It's a critical area, especially you're looking at the population, majority of which are poor people, but also even when you look at the employment sector, very few people are in employment in terms of those who are in the formal sector. Of course, the majority of the employees we know are in the informal sector. But when it comes to issues of generating income, this is a critical area, especially when it comes to taxation system. And over some time now, a number of CSOs have been advocating for the government also to raise the minimum tax band, especially to commensurate with the cost of living. We would propose therefore that 5,000, even 6,000 as the minimum threshold for payee would be something that would provide some relief. We know the government is struggling also to also increase their revenue base, but at the same time, this is the government which is also looking at the needs of the majority of the population who need to be cushioned. There are various measures that are being put in place, including the social protection programs or social cash transfer, but the measure that can cater a number of people and provide a relief, I think, is when it comes to the minimum tax threshold. If that can be increased to something in the region of 6,000 kwacha, that will make a good relief for the people of Zambia.
To know as it relates to the matters involving any members of our family. However, we have learned of the recent lawsuits through news items published in tabloids and various social media platforms. We proceeded to engage our lawyers and to obtain necessary documents from the state, which attempts have met with difficulties. We have finally obtained the necessary documents and will proceed to respond appropriately. Our appeal to all of you is to allow us to defend ourselves in court. The dramatization of our circumstances by the state in the daily tabloids has only worked to demonize our father, who has diligently worked to serve this country and willingly handed over power to the incumbent. We have spent considerable time with our father and our mother, who in all these difficult times have opted to remain silent. Sorry. Our father's resolve is to allow the law to take its course, and we agree with his position. Whereas some of you may call our father different names, he remains a caring father to us and a loving husband to our mother. We wish to thank you all who have reached out to us and sympathized with us. Your encouragement has kept us going.
There you have it. Those are some of the emerging stories that we have on the Lunchtime Cafe. And interesting enough, I hope you did manage to get those stories. However, these stories will be expanded in the 1930 main news. We are getting more detail on the stories. We are still getting to get the other side of the story. For instance, the story where the former First family is raising concerns. We are seeking government's perspective on these allegations that have been made, and it is going to be repackaged for the 1930 main news here on Camnet TV, not just another channel. Interesting enough, also those stories were coming on the budget proposals. We are also expanding the stories and working them, updating them, and getting more details to them. So make sure that you join us in the main news at 1930, because Camnet TV, as usual, will give you nothing but the very best in the world of news. And as you already know, that we do not hide anything, and we make sure that we cover everyone, and we do not want any attributes related to biasness, and because we are seeking to be an objective station that only represents the community interest, and that's what we do best, because our loyalty at the end of the day is to the general public. Nelson.
Yeah, quite interesting indeed, and we continue to provide nothing but the very much needed information pertaining to what is on the ground. Yeah, and when you look at that clip from the former First family, you tend to raise your own perspective as well and begin to ask questions, what you think could be the truth, what you think should be the story in line with what was just given, because these people are alleging that they're being persecuted. They're alleging that while some formal complaints are being made to them to ensure that they appear before the law enforcers, you find that this information is not readily available to them, but they only know of it via social media without them being confronted. And they're saying we've had in conversations with our lawyers to ensure that we take appropriate action, and we're looking forward